was the year 2015, a time when I had recently settled into a small house far from my hometown. Still acquainting myself with the area and mostly confined to working from home, I hadn't forged many connections. Christmas plans were non-existent. Distance kept me away from family, and limited vacation time prevented a trip to see them. Thus, it was to be my first Christmas spent in solitary. On Christmas Eve, I remained at my desk, intending to tidy up work to free Christmas Day from looming tasks. As I toiled away in the living room, tunes serenading my efforts, a sound from outside caught my ear. I removed one headphone, straining to catch more, but all fell silent. Standing, I glanced about, still wearing the other earpiece. The source seemed elusive, yet I was certain it came from beyond the house, not within. Peering out the back window revealed nothing, and the front offered no more insight. But when I ventured to the front door, the porch unveiled a curious sight. Boot prints etched in the snow, leading directly to my doorstep and back to the driveway. No parcels or traces of a delivery, just those prints. An uncanny feeling crept over me. The unease of someone arriving unannounced at 11 p.m. lingered, baffling as to why anyone would tread to my door in such a manner. On Christmas Eve, I locked the door and went back to work until I was sleepy. When I woke up on Christmas morning, I felt surprisingly ordinary. With a brewed cup of coffee in hand, I settled into a chair in front of the TV. The hours slipped by as I enjoyed TV shows and movies, interrupted briefly by a call to my parents. Even though I considered going outside, the biting cold and fierce winds tied me to the house for the day. By 18 o'clock, my day had turned into a whirlwind of idleness, except for preparing dinner and intending to go to bed early. Suddenly, a terrible disturbance, the disturbing shuffling of footsteps in the snow approaching the front door. I waited in silence, knowing that no one would come. After a moment, the sound receded. Upon investigating, I found a scene almost identical to the one that happened last night. Determined not to let my guard down, I tried to keep my eyes open, but fatigue took over. I woke up on the couch, the TV emitting an eerie flickering light in the dark room. The dream took me by surprise, despite all my attempts to resist. The room remained dimly lit, and it confused me when I came to. I halted the TV, rising to head for my bedroom. Yet my steps faltered upon a chilling sight. My bedroom door ajar, an anomaly as I habitually kept it shut. Approaching, I widened the door, flicking on the light. A shock jolted through me at the sight of wet shoe imprints, tracking back and forth from the window. Stunned, I glanced around, then illuminated the hallway. More prints emerged, leading downstairs. Pursuing them, I found they halted abruptly, as if retracing their steps upon noticing my presence on the couch. A disconcerting realization struck. No other footprints marred the house. Despite the police's efforts, their assistance proved limited. The prevailing notion suggested my husband visited those previous nights, checking if I was home, assuming my absence due to the closed door, a misguided notion. While it's plausible the intruder's motive was robbery, the unsettling truth lingers, especially since I was asleep in my own home during these events. Strangely, whoever it was never returned. In December, I embarked on a cross-country journey to join my family for Christmas. Typically, we'd all converge at my parents' spacious home, where couches and spare bedrooms served as our accommodations. No hotel bookings necessary for this trip. The drive spanned 10 hours, and I opted to push through without halting halfway for an overnight stop. Departing in the early hours of the 23rd, I aimed to arrive around noon. Initially, a light snowfall accompanied my journey, causing some minor traffic congestion. Hours later, however, a sudden transformation occurred. What had been a gentle snowfall escalated rapidly into a fierce storm. Within just 30 minutes, the snowfall intensified, coupled with howling winds that obscured visibility. While most cars began pulling off the road, I persisted, determined to press forward. For nearly an hour, I battled these treacherous conditions, enduring multiple crashes before conceding defeat. Seeking refuge, I sought shelter at a motel, joining a parking lot filled with other stranded vehicles. We all seemed to share the same hope, to wait out the storm. As dusk approached, it became apparent that the weather wouldn't relent anytime soon. Reluctantly, I secured a room, retreating to its comfort around 8 p.m. Setting my phone alarm for 11, I surrendered to exhaustion, hoping for clearer skies after a few hours of rest. As I woke, an unsettling feeling gripped me instantly. Glancing at my phone, its screen displayed a mere 2 a.m., the alarm untriggered. Hastily springing from the bed, I dashed to the window. The parking lot lay nearly deserted, besieged by relentless snowfall. Returning to the bed, a difficult decision loomed. I resigned to the lost night, hoping for better conditions at dawn. Attempting to rest, an odd sensation disrupted my peace. A chilling draft sliced through the room, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of the wind. My eyes flew open, fixating on the window at the room's end, a window I was certain had been shut before sleep claimed me. Such a disturbance I'd surely have noticed in the midst of a real storm outside. An electric jolt surged through me, excitement mingled with alarm. Turning my attention to the room's darkness, I stood motionless, straining to catch any sound. Slowly, cautiously, I canvassed the space, seeking any evidence of intrusion. Yet, nothing seemed amiss until I inspected the peephole. There, a chilling revelation, ajar locks opened from the inside. Panic surged within as I slammed the door shut, retreating, my mind racing through the horrors of potential scenarios. I hurriedly packed my belongings, preparing to depart. Abruptly, the doorknob jerked violently. Wide-eyed, I watched it rattle back and forth, as if someone were attempting to force their way in. Then, an eerie silence fell. After a tense wait, I cautiously inched toward the door, aiming for a swift dash to the car. Peering through the peephole, I spotted a man leaning against the door, seemingly listening. Frozen in fear, I prayed for stillness. But something must have alerted him, as moments later he bolted away. Without hesitation, I fled the room, leaping into the car and speeding away from the motel. Luck was on my side. Deserted roads, freshly plowed, aided my escape. Battling the storm, I eventually reached my parents' home, though the journey stretched far longer than it should have. What the intruder intended remains a chilling mystery. He had been in my room while I slept, attempted entry, then returned. The motives behind his actions elude me entirely. If I hadn't stirred when I did, even a minute's more slumber might have jeopardized my arrival at my parents' home. Years back, my roommate and I opted for a cozy Christmas celebration at our small suburban house off campus. With our families not observing the holiday and our wallets running on empty, we chose to remain home for the winter break. Despite our modest decorating efforts and exchanging budget-friendly gifts, we anticipated a laid-back holiday, mainly revolving around movie marathons and a potential evening party. Come Christmas Day, we unwrapped our presents, lounged around, and by around 5, my roommate expressed an interest in a campus party. I had intended to join, but an inexplicable fatigue settled in, dissuading me from venturing out. I suggested he go ahead without me, and he took me up on the offer, departing at 6. Left alone, I indulged in junk food, idly flipping through TV channels, soaking in the solitude. Around 8, an urge to break the monotony struck. Given the absence of available entertainment, I grabbed my jacket, contemplating a stroll to admire the neighborhood's festive lights. The night was chilly, tolerable enough. I wandered through the neighborhood and into a nearby park. Along a tree-lined section of the path, a solitary figure sat on a bench. It struck me as odd, the lack of houses in this area, and yet there he was, seated alone. As I passed by, he glanced up, shooting me a chillingly cold stare. His demeanor struck me as unsettling, sparking a heightened curiosity about his presence in such an isolated spot. I quickened my pace, reaching the path's end before retracing my steps homeward. Yet, thoughts of the man lingered, his presence etching an uneasy feeling within me. Arriving at my doorstep, I entered, shutting the door firmly behind me, and began removing my shoes. Yet, before I even took a step, a swift knock startled me. Its immediacy after my return sent a shiver down my spine. Leaning toward the peephole, I spotted the man from the walkway, his face an empty canvas devoid of expression. Without a hint of emotion, neither smile nor sorrow, he stood on the porch, silent. Opening the door, I inquired about his well-being, met with a vacant gaze that offered no response. My attempts to engage him in conversation were met with eerie silence. Fearing the unknown, I closed the door, my eyes fixated on the peephole. For what seemed like an eternity, he lingered, motionless, before finally moving out of sight. Scanning the room, I noticed the open curtains, granting an unobstructed view into my home from the outside. The thought of my husband possibly peering in made me hesitant to close them, despite only revealing the Christmas tree and sofa. Still, the idea of him observing felt deeply unsettling. As I stood contemplating my next move, a muffled knock jolted me from my thoughts. Stepping back, my gaze darted to the window to find a man forcefully striking it with a large stone. His vacant, emotionless eyes added a chilling layer to the unfolding horror. Instinctively, I sprinted, barricading myself in a room while frantically dialing 911. The relentless pounding echoed through the house as the man continued his assault on the window. Moments later, the attack shifted to the front door, the sounds reverberating ominously. Minutes dragged by as the unsettling symphony persisted, leaving me on edge until a sudden hush fell over the scene. When the police arrived, the intruder had vanished, leaving behind shattered windows and damaged door panels. Their assessment leaned toward him being intoxicated, with no evident motive for targeting me. Nevertheless, his erratic behavior posed a terrifying threat. The looming question of what could have unfolded had he gained entry hung heavy in the air.